Welcome back, everybody. Well, welcome back for me. Most of you haven't gone anywhere, but I'm back here at HQ in New York after a short trip to Sweden, where I learned quite a bit about what is going on in that country and what may be in store for us here in America. I'm going to be joined momentarily, of course, by my regular Tuesday guest, Larry Nichols. And Larry and I have been having an ongoing conversation about the confirmation process of Judge Kavanaugh and the Democratic Dirty Tricks campaign. Let's give Larry a ring. I just spoke to him a moment ago, and he should be with us very shortly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon.
Hello.
Larry, how are you, my friend?
Sorry about that. I'm good to go. I don't know why I had my time zone stuff all screwed up, which is not uncommon for me.
No worries at all, Larry. We've just begun, and of course, we're now a day or two into this FBI investigation of Judge Kavanaugh. You and I have been speaking for the past couple of weeks about this process, and I think we're both quite disappointed in how it's going. What's on your mind today?
Well, relative to Kavanaugh, the Republicans have committed probably another one of their either greatest mistakes or they did it on purpose. And it was just a way to stab Trump in the back.
Right.
Where we stand today with Kavanaugh is scary, folks, and I just want everybody to know this. Whether he now gets approved for the Supreme Court or not doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter no more.
Why do you say that?
The Democrats have won. Well, the Democrats and the Republicans that want to hurt Trump have already won. Because here's what's going to happen in the midterm election. As you and I, Jason, have told people over and over and over again, midterm elections typically are bad voter turnout. Yeah. So any movement in voter turnout is very dramatic. So in other words, if you were a liberal and you got some big liberal group to turn out 20,000 voters, well, that's significant. Where maybe in a general election it wouldn't be that big a deal in an election for when the president's running. Mm-hmm. So you got very dramatic results. What happened with Kavanaugh that's killed Trump, he's not careful, is that the Republican base, they're sitting there, and once again, they're saying, Jason, how many times have the quote-unquote Republicans got to get whipped until they learn to play hardball or whatever? And so people just get disgruntled, dissatisfied, and say, to hell with it, Jason. I'm just, why vote? Why bother?
Right. Well, Larry, what do you think?
In a midterm election, people not voting is also dramatic.
Right. What do you think about the possibility that, despite what's being said by the Democrats in Congress and the news, that perhaps people see through this obvious character assassination attempt and have sympathy for Kavanaugh, and perhaps this could blow up in the Democrats' faces?
I wish. I mean, there is a fallback sympathy reaction that's going to occur. He's going to get some bolstering from a fallback sympathy, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be there. I mean, Jason, look at yourself. you are very, whether, maybe I shouldn't ask you on national radio, but I've got to believe that you are being honest looking at America. You're very disappointed in the Republican Party over this Kavanaugh business, aren't you?
Well, I'm not so much disappointed in the Republicans. I don't really look at things in terms of Republicans and Democrats. I'm looking at it in terms of, criminals and those attempting to expose the criminals. I'm still hopeful that Christopher Wray is trying to do the right thing. I think it might have been you, Larry, who told me that there was some sort of internal sting at the FBI during those last days when Stroke and McCabe were still at the FBI, and they were sort of caught destroying evidence, and that's now going to come out in the grand jury investigations of those guys. So I'm just hopeful that President Trump can, point out the wrongdoing and get to the bottom of all this. True Pundit is reporting that Kavanaugh is still a good bet, according to folks risking money. And this is an article talking about how many people feel it's still likely that Kavanaugh will be confirmed. And I think a lot of people were not very convinced by this second accuser. Was it Swetnick, who went on to NBC? I think they feel like these are uncorroborated allegations.
Well, especially when, now here again, we're talking about political people or non-political people. People that understand and follow politics see the dichotomy when they're looking at the head of the Democratic Party, whatever that guy is, who is being sued for, beating up his girlfriend or whatever, and the treatment that he's getting, which is basically he's innocent until proven guilty.
Ellison.
And then they're looking at Kavanaugh, Ellison. And then they sit and look at Kavanaugh, who's guilty until he can prove he's innocent. So, people that are paying a lot of attention, they do see it. That is a significant group. But I'm going to say this, Jason, look in the mirror. Be honest. If it goes down come election day, if everything today is essentially frozen in time and everything is as it has been,
yep,
you cannot tell me you would not be incredibly disappointed. Now, whether you want to call it disappointment in the good guys, bad guys, Republicans, Democrats, whatever you want to frame it as, makes no difference to me. I'm telling you, you will look in that mirror and you're going to be disappointed if everything stays as it is today.
Well, of course. I think we need to overcome some of this stuff. I'm disappointed in Flake. I'm disappointed in the American people that have disregarded this presumption of innocence. That's the most important aspect of this to me, Larry, because, over the past 2 years, I've been subject to a smear campaign online, and I'm very disappointed by people who hear bizarre allegations and are so quick to believe them before anything is proven. I want people to be really focused on how important our constitutional rights are, and the presumption of innocence is one of the most fundamental foundations of the Constitution and the formation of our country. I've just returned from Sweden, Larry, where a number of people there told me that despite the fact that Sweden does have a constitution which does guarantee freedom of the press and freedom of speech, there is literally no freedom of speech in Sweden. There's a woman who was jailed for 3 months, a 65-year-old woman, for posting something on Facebook criticizing some attackers who physically assaulted her and injured her. She said something about Islam that was found offensive, and she was thrown in jail. I think that is an incredibly dangerous climate, and we're going down a very slippery slope when people in the Senate are instructing the American public that everyone has the right to be believed. Those are dangerous words and untrue.
Well, now here's where it's going to get really sticky. I have tried to tell people for 30 years, essentially, about the progressive movement.
Right.
The progressive movement, for those that are just hearing for the first time, that's not liberal. Liberals want what liberals want. You know, they want abortion rights. They want to do whatever they want to do, which is not what conservatives want. The progressives, Jason, they want to change our form of government. They want to shut our form of government down, the constitutional form of government, and create an oligarchy or a socialist, communist, anyway, this new kind of government that, of course, benefits this social elite group.
Aren't we already
about it, but
an oligarchy?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't you say we're already in an
Yes.
oligarchy? I mean, you know, these guys who run Amazon and Google control like most of the world.
Well, yes, actually you're right, but we still have the ability, constitutionally, we do have the ability to fight it through you know, some of the laws like monopolies and all of that. I mean, there are ways to fight it. We may not be doing it or doing a very good job, but there are ways.
Right.
Here's what scares me. This past week, on Tucker Carlson, he had a panel. And on this panel was a Democrat and the other was a Republican. And they were debating, going at it, as you know they do. And the Democrat, or the quote-unquote progressive as he was announced, the progressive gave it up. He shouted out when he got tired of, you know, fighting back and forth. He said, we need a new form of government.
Wow.
We need to do away with. I mean, he said it right then.
Wow.
He said it.
That's crazy.
Remember not government.
It's
My
very
God.
disturbing.
That should scare you to your knees.
It does. I mean,
We have people in our government right now, Jason, people in our government, in our Senate, in our United States Senate, in our United States House of Representatives, people right now that want the constitutional republic form of government we have stopped, done away with.
It is upsetting. You've hit it on the head. That's my biggest concern, Larry, is just, you know, routing out the corruption and, you know, people like Dianne Feinstein who have spies working for her who are bringing forward these documents weeks into the process and then complaining that there's not enough time and wanting these open-ended FBI investigations. I think we're headed down a dangerous road when someone can have these uncorroborated allegations where they don't have a clear memory. There's all these contradictions. Her friend says she doesn't remember the party, but yet this gets an FBI investigation in a week, and the Clinton Foundation, Charles Ortel, has put together so much information, and he and I have done over 100 two-hour-long programs presenting government documents, IRS filings, hard evidence, prima facie evidence of financial crimes, corruption, and even treasonous acts, and no one's calling for an FBI investigation or demanding that this be looked into or anything like that.
Right.
They've weaponized allegations.
And then one of the mechanisms by which they're going to change our form of government if we don't stop them goes back to Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev.
Yeah.
I know most of our audience probably don't remember him, but for those of us old enough to remember the shoe pounding on the desk, and he said, we don't have to, I'm paraphrasing, we don't have to do anything. You'll destroy yourself from within. What did he know? What did he know that we apparently didn't? And what's really scary is exactly what he said is exactly how our demise is coming if we don't stop it, which is, you see, this whole thing with Kavanaugh, this gets back to Kavanaugh, Jason. This gets back to how disappointed we are that, whether you call it Republicans, whether you call it conservatives, whether you call it good guys, whatever, that we're not stopping this madness. And it's absolute madness that people can be claiming the things you're claiming in this Kavanaugh case. I mean, it's just so outlandish, you can't even believe we're talking about it. How? How can it be unless you go back to Khrushchev? Go back to him. And then you understand what I wrote about in 1986, me and some other guys. I wrote about this transformation from our form of government to another type. Didn't matter what, just another form of government. And the way you sold the people, there's the key, the people, the sheeple. The people in America, the way you sold them on this transformation, oh, it was so clever. As a matter of fact, it still is clever if you like bad things. Get government to where it can't go anywhere.
Right. It's just a logjam.
Just a constant logjam. Make people lose faith in our government. Now, what you're doing is a sleight of hand, right? Misdirection. Mm-hmm. Remember I told you about our tricks we did, misdirection.
Yep.
Using misdirection, what you do is you make the American people look at how our government is failing, it's worthless, it's outdated. Yes, they didn't have computers back in Washington's day. They didn't have telephones, radios.
Larry? Larry? Hello? Oops, I lost you there for a second. I lost you for a second, Larry. George? I lost you for a moment. You said that George Washington didn't have computers and telephones.
Right. One of the things that they used to propagate this, our constitutional form of government doesn't work anymore is because they're able to say, golly gee, George Washington during his time, they didn't have computers, they didn't have cell phones, all the things they didn't have that today we got, so therefore our government should be reflective of the new technologies, etc. Except that's where we did the sleight of hand. You see, folks, it's not our form of government that is logjam. It's not accomplishing anything. That has a 7 to 11% favorability rate nationally. It's not our form of government, although they're making you think it is. It's the people in our government. But you see how that's masked, how they cover that up, how we covered that up. People think it's our form of government that's failing. It's not that, it's the people in our government that's failing.
The members of Congress.
We got to stop it. That's right. We got to stop it.
Larry, I only spent 2 days in Sweden, but I learned quite a bit. And multiple people I spoke to, I was at an event, and there were multiple people there who told me that in many ways what's going on in Sweden is kind of a beta test for what globalist, leaders want to do to other countries around the world. And there were more than 2 or 3 Swedish people I spoke to who are leaving Sweden because they feel like the country has completely failed and is beyond recovery.
There you go.
It's very sad.
There you go. And by the way, what's happening to us is not an American problem. We're talking about global.
Right.
What happens with us affects the world.
Yeah, right. Well, the party that's been controlling Sweden for the past several decades is the Swedish Democratic Socialists. And we've been hearing so much about Democratic Socialists of America, James O'Keefe and Project Veritas did that great expose last week where they spoke to a number of people who were working for the State Department and other government agencies who openly admitted that they were democratic socialists. And I guess that's one of those things where the name sounds good, and if you're 20, the idea of free college and free health care and all of that sounds good. But you know, some of the Swedish people I met opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, you look at somebody like Alex Jones, where these big tech giants have gotten together and they've openly colluded to block him from the internet. What happens when the government decides that you're somebody that they don't like and what you're saying is not free speech, it's hate speech, or for whatever reason they want to block you? You know, Sweden has also been converted to a cashless society. So just as PayPal was able to turn off a major funding avenue for InfoWars and Alex Jones, if all of the money is electronically controlled, they can just flip a switch and you can't buy food anymore.
That's right. Oh, Jason, I look at the scams being pulled off on the American people, and it makes me sick to my stomach. Especially sick when I know I was there for part of the development of it. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible sin that you carry on your shoulders. And to see it work.
Well, Larry, I'm still holding out hope that there could be a good outcome in the end. Another article on True Pundit earlier today is talking about a good case for sanctioning Christine Blasey Ford's lawyers, recognizing that this is a smear, that these guys there's a conflict of interest, and that there's all these connections between Andrew McCabe, this lawyer Bromwich, and his alleged, you know, free representation of Christine Blasey Ford. The lawyers created a number of GoFundMe accounts, and I mean, it really is just a sham to soak the public for money, present this woman who, by many people's accounts, appears to be not remembering this accurately or not recounting the story accurately. New York Times reported that she was calling friends to try to corroborate the story, and even the incredibly left-wing failing New York Times refused to report the story because they felt it was uncorroborated. Now, for some reason, this information wasn't strong enough for the New York Times, but yet the Democratic senators in this confirmation committee feel that it is substantial enough to investigate by the FBI. I come back to this spy in Dianne Feinstein's office. What about Imran Awan? What about all these cases where we have had tremendous amounts of evidence and the FBI failed to properly investigate? I think people are starting to notice, Larry. I'm still hopeful that this can turn around and go the right way.
Well, let's be very clear. It can. It can. Mine is not a message, Jason, of doom and gloom. What I try to be is a message of truth.
Right.
Look, it don't do none of us any good to sit around and pat ourselves on the back and lie to each other.
Right.
All right? It don't help nothing. There is a way to stop all of this, and it gets back to what I told you. You've got to look at the cause. Is our form of government the cause? No. It has served us well for over 200 years. It isn't one experiment in this world that had worked. It's the people inside this government that's causing it to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And we the people, Jason, we can stop them. That's all we got to do is stop them. And it's over. We win. We're safe. Country's safe.
There's another story I wanted to bring to your attention, Larry, also from True Pundit, and this speaks to the credibility of Dr. Ford's memory. The prosecutor that the Republicans had hired to question her is reporting that Christine Blasi Ford couldn't recall if the polygraph test was on the day of her grandmother's funeral. Now, this is stuff that happened within the past couple of weeks, and I would think that the death of her grandmother would be a pretty significant event that she'd be able to remember clearly. So,
Right.
again, I'm hopeful that this is the type of thing that will be exposed as a fraud, and that the American public will start to realize that, you know, things aren't necessarily as they seem. I think there are a lot of people who are still caught up in this sort of psychological froth of hearing something on the news or hearing something from a senator and automatically presuming that it's correct. I'm really hopeful that more and more people are going to start becoming critical thinkers and examining these things for themselves. It just doesn't make logical sense as a sort of on the face of it that someone who was so academically oriented and spent so much time studying that he could become a lawyer, go to a really good law school, become a judge, and spend all this time in his career without ever having a single accusation remotely like any of these gang raping and drugging women at parties. I mean, these are wild allegations that don't seem compatible with being a lawyer and a judge. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't committed, but, you know, on the face of it, it doesn't seem credible. And then there's all these problems with uncorroborated stuff. So hopefully people will start to open their eyes.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there is something I want to point out.
Sure.
You know, we talk about standards of law. One standard for us, one standard for them. You know, the Clintons, us, etc. Well, let me shut that phone off. I don't know why it's ringing. But the thing that I want people to understand, let's take Kavanaugh. I'm going to say, okay, Cavanaughs probably as fine a guy as you're ever going to find as far as history shows what we've seen. But there's one thing people miss. Do you notice, Jason, that he has that calendar / diary?
Yeah.
How many people do you know have done that since they were in high school?
I know some people that keep diaries and had diaries in college and stuff like that. I mean, definitely his seemed remarkably detailed and organized, but you know, I mean, I'm not a judge in the Federal Circuit Court. The guy's definitely more organized than me.
My point is, this is for the first time I think we're able to see a case, and there's nothing wrong with this if this is what the man chose to do or be. But it shows you, Jason, that just about since birth he has been being groomed for a position and power somewhere, somehow, some way.
Right.
He's been groomed for it. So a man going through that kind of grooming, right? He's not going to blow it with giving alcohol to somebody at a party.
I mean, I agree.
What I'm saying?
Yeah. It seems very unlikely that these two types of behavior would go together. That in and of itself doesn't absolve the guy, but I agree with you. We start with that. Now, if Dr. Ford had a clear memory of the date and the location, and all the people coming forward corroborated what she was saying, and there were holes in Kavanaugh's story, and we felt like he was lying, that might be a different story. But I feel like the man is being sincere. I mean, when you listen to what he has to say, it makes sense. It seems congruent with the type of person his career suggests that he is. I just, you know, I think there's nothing more to be said about it.
Now, and then the other thing that I do appreciate from what he's going through, because I've gone through it, you've gone through it, maybe neither one of us have gone through it as severe as what he has in an intense short period of time. But, you know, look at what it's doing. If he is blocked and is not allowed to be confirmed, can people not see? We're not going to get anybody to stand up and take a job like this.
Right.
Nobody's going to be willing. I mean, here's a guy clearly groomed since birth, nearly, to try to do right, to fit this perfect pattern, this mold that you've got to be to achieve some high-level position and power in your lifetime, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Here's a man that's done all the things right, and my God, look at what he's gone through. Kind of makes you feel stupid. Why would you live good? Why would you live like he has and just try to follow the 10 Commandments and live your life as close to God's laws as you can? Why would you do that or be like somebody like me, a scumbag? Because guess what? He's just as destroyed as I am, right?
Well, the final chapter hasn't been written yet, Larry. You know, as I said, I think that there's a lot of things that happen in life that can cause people to think, you know, what's the point in carrying on? But sometimes we're just compelled to do that. And I mean, again, I'm hopeful. Look, let's take it back a second, because strictly on the merit of his career as a judge, when this started, I wasn't that into Kavanaugh. I didn't like the fact that he, you know, was appointed by George W. Bush. He's made some decisions that, you know, from what I've been told, Larry Klayman had explained to me that Judge Kavanaugh made a number of decisions that seemed to support this rampant spying and violations of the Constitution and privacy and things. So I didn't like that. And I don't think he was the best choice. I mean, he seems like a decent enough guy, but I would have preferred somebody else. Now that all these false accusations, they seem false to me, have been brought against him, I've got so much sympathy for the guy that just as they did with Donald Trump, the Democrats have pushed me to the right, where I want Kavanaugh to be appointed now, because I just don't think this type of behavior can be allowed to stand. You know, there was a tweet from Donald Trump Jr., and many other people are sharing this sentiment, that if it is true that everyone has the right to be believed, then a wild accusation is as dangerous as a criminal conviction. It can destroy your life.
That's exactly right. That is exactly why the founders of our nation, creators of our laws, were brilliant enough to realize and to create as a part of our Constitution that you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
Because short of that, exactly what you said is absolute.
Yeah.
Absolute. Now, I'll leave it this way, Jason. Everything that I know was in the 86 plan.
Right.
Has occurred exactly like it was supposed to. Now, some of the timing's a little off because, you know, there were interludes that were supposed to not last, but Hillary couldn't follow that, so she messed it up. But anyway, that's what's weird. The 86 plan has been so right, so absolutely perfect, that it scares me.
Right. And that's the plan you've told us about, that you were part of drafting in 1986 for them to basically take over and destroy the country.
That was a plan to make Bill and Hillary the most powerful couple in the history of the world.
Yeah. It's worked to some extent.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, and Hillary used to teach us all about selective memory. You know, selective memory. She used to say, that's your key in the courtroom. Selective memory, selective memory.
What do you mean?
Well, you're seeing that with that Ford woman. Selective. Well, it's amazing how she can remember what happened. They did this to me, or I saw this, or whatever. But then she can't remember how she got there. She can't remember where the house was. She can't remember you know, it's crazy. It's like Hillary back in the days when she was brought before the hearings in Washington, you know, Whitewater and such.
Yeah.
Hillary would know exactly everything up to exactly this moment in time, and then she couldn't recall.
And then they have psychologists who back up what they're saying by saying, you know, there have been studies that show that victims of traumatic assaults sometimes have very clear memories of one thing and not another. I mean, again, it all comes back, Larry, to the need for this presumption of innocence. I don't know if you ever saw this interview that I did several months ago with Cliven Bundy and Ryan Bundy, and they had just been released from prison. And Ryan, both those men carry a pocket constitution with them. And Ryan, as you may know, defended himself pro se in that very serious matter, and they prevailed. And Ryan told me and Laura Loomer during that conversation how much of the Constitution was written to favor the accused. It was specifically designed to protect people against false allegations. And I cannot overstate the fact that the most stunning thing to me is that so many people are not only willing, but aggressively driving towards throwing all of that away. That is the destruction of our country, in my view.
Mm-hmm. And remember, that is transforming our form of government.
Right.
That act that seems to be so minuscule compared to the big thing, right, of our government, you know, whether you call yourself a democracy or a republic, that's the big thing. But you're not paying attention. Just changing that little dynamic of innocent till proven guilty to guilty until you can try to prove yourself innocent. Just that little change.
Yeah.
Modifies our form of government.
Well, it's already happened, because look at what Kavanaugh is going through. The man's life will never be the same again. True Pundit was also reporting that Kavanaugh has had to withdraw from a teaching position at Harvard because so many students had signed a petition to, you know, get him out of there. So even, you know, I saw on Twitter some moronic lawyer who, I don't understand how this guy became a lawyer, but just a few weeks ago, this guy was calling for the FBI to investigate me because he thought I was a Mossad agent or whatever. But this guy is now saying that it's okay what they're doing to Kavanaugh because it's not a court of law. I mean, my issue is it's a criminal accusation against the man. So even if he's not being tried in a court of law, they say, oh, well, it's a job interview, so this information is okay to do it this way. But I disagree. I think if someone's going to charge him with a criminal act, it should first be dealt with like a crime. Like, why is the FBI even investigating this? It should be the local police that would be investigating it or determining if the allegations are adequate to even bring an investigation. There's a political cartoon that someone made of Kavanaugh's daughter saying prayers for her angry, lying, alcoholic father for sexually assaulting Dr. Ford. Now, Kavanaugh's daughters are, I think, 10 and 12 or something like that. This is going to permanently damage those girls, their perception of their father, their perception of themselves. It is disgraceful. It is a national disgrace.
It is indeed, buddy. That's why I say right here, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here with you, Jason, on this program once a week.
It's important for us to get this word out.
Stop it. And the first thing to do to stop it, Jason, is to spread the word.
Exactly.
And by that, folks, I'll caution you all. We hurt ourselves more than anybody hurts us. You know, I look at this social media, I look at this internet, I look at all of these things. We're quick to jump on the craziest story that's out there.
Exactly.
And we can't wait to push it on everybody we know. And when we do that, we drive people away. There's enough in factual, guaranteed, you can't miss it, absolute truth, that we don't have to rely on sensationalism for anything, Jason. We don't. Come here to this program. Pick up whatever you can from this program. Pick it up. And then tell others. Have others come. Tell others. If they come to this program, we're not going to embarrass their intelligence. We're not going to tell them space aliens are crawling in gutters. We're not going to do that. I hope we're not going to do it.
No, definitely not. I agree with what you're saying, Larry. I've found that there's a large number of people who are drawn to, the alternative media because they know that the mainstream media is not giving them the full story. And when I see incidents like the Las Vegas shooting, yesterday, of course, was the 1-year anniversary of that horrible shooting in Las Vegas, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that not everything that we're being told by the FBI or the government or the mainstream news is true. And each time something like this happens, there are people who maybe were alive during the JFK assassination and believed that. And obviously were there when 9/11 happened and they believed that official story. But it's different for everyone when their eyes get open to what is really going on. And the thing that I try to avoid, there's a lot of people I see who feel like as long as they've got an explanation that is contrary to the mainstream story, that gives it some kind of credibility. Ridiculous theories like this holograms crashing into the World Trade Center. I'm going to be doing a show about how that's technologically impossible very soon. But we can't just adhere, as you've said, to any story that comes along because it's contradictory to the mainstream news. We need to be very critical in evaluating any story that we get from anyone, whether it's Dr. Ford or someone who comes on to Crowdsource the Truth or wherever we might hear it. That type of critical thinking is truly important. That's right. And I face it every day as you do. Every day. I get phone call after phone call. Hey, did you hear the latest? Such and such, such and such. And you know what I say? Yeah.
That's not true.
Right. I agree.
It's impossible. Can't happen. And I try, and I know you do. Look, Coach, Jason and I, we're not the truth police. It's not our job to sit up here day in and day out and tell the world what is or is not real. Because in truth, we may not know either.
Right.
I mean, some of this stuff can get by us just as easy as it can get by you.
Right.
But if you want to save the country, come to this program. Bring somebody to this program. And learn. And learn the difference between something that's real, something that is justifiable, something that is rational. It's still bad. It's still destroying our country, but there's a rationale to it that you can explain and show others. Instead of some of these things that you take to them and they're going, my God, what happened to you?
Larry,
I can tell you all, I bet every one of you listening to me now, including me and including Jason, we've all had that moment when we were telling somebody something about all of this and you look and their eyes start rolling back in the back of their head, thinking we're nuts.
Exactly. Well, Larry, you were the first person to clearly state it to me that the overwhelming result of this process, irrespective of what happens with Kavanaugh's confirmation, is that it's going to damage the ability in the future for quality people to be brought into the government, because they'll expect this type of smear campaign, this type of personal destruction. And I see the same exact thing happening in this world of alternative media. We've all known for a long, long time that the things like Operation Mockingbird have been used to control the mainstream media. And when we look at all these smears against me or other honest YouTubers, my guests, you know, people constantly sending emails, this person's lying, that person's lying, and also guests who have come to the show in the past who have been shown to be lying, guests who gained my trust. It's very damaging, because what the people who are doing that are trying to do is to dissuade credible people from coming on to the show. And there are people who have told me, oh, I don't want to, you know, be on the air, I don't want the trolls to come after me or whatever. But that's not going to cause me to cower. That's going to cause me to push back even harder. I think you know, Larry, there are 2 frivolous lawsuits against me right now, one of which the lawyer for the plaintiff admitted in a document submitted to the court that his client actually did commit the fraud that I allege, which essentially decimates their defamation case, because if I'm telling the truth, it's not defamation. The other lawsuit just got thrown out of court in South Carolina, but they keep trying. And they spread the word, they publicize these things to try to damage people's opinion of me, to try to get people to not look at Crowdsource the Truth, to try to get people not to go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and sponsor the program. They want me to stop. They want my guests to stop coming on. They don't want me to tell people that they should go to nicholslive.com and support Larry by donating to him financially. I much prefer the word sponsor, because of course Larry isn't you're not a 501c3, right, Larry? This is just money that people who want to give to you. Yeah, so it's people sponsoring Larry, and it's people sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth, and it's like if you go to a museum and you choose to pay, then you do. But obviously if no one pays, the museum will close after a while. And Larry and his team have done a very good job of putting together this website. It's got scripts that you can use to call your representative and speak to him about the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing or Peter Strzok's wife, and explain to them how, as a citizen of the United States and a constituent of some of these congresspeople, you're concerned about the state of what's going on. And obviously if no calls come into these congresspeople, they're not going to care and they're not going to worry. But if their constituents start calling them en masse and letting them know that they aren't going to put up with this type of logjam in government anymore, the hope is there'll be some action. And that's what we're trying to do, right, Larry?
That's right. And there's one weapon that we all have if we'll use it. We've got a weapon that works. It's worked always, and it'll continue to work. Every member of Washington, D.C., every one of them, they're concerned about one thing: their job.
Right.
Their job. And all we've got to do is convince these senators and these congressmen. All we got to do is convince them, make them understand that if they continue to violate our intelligence, to destroy our country, our government, they're going home.
Yeah.
They're going to go home. They're going to go home hard.
Yeah.
So you see, if we just do that, folks, if we just do that. But as far as, you know, helping me, look, y'all, I don't care anymore if you believe me. I don't care. And I don't care if you want to help me or you don't. I love what Jason says, kind of like a museum, where at the end of the thing, if you want to contribute, throw one in the hat. If you don't, going out. That's the way it should be. If you want to, do. If you don't, don't. You'll notice with me and with Jason, you've got what we've got to give. We give it to you before you have to pay a penny.
Right.
But folks, it's our country. And these people that are so committed to stopping Jason and to keep him from having guests on that he knows what they're talking about. Guests that he knows you need to know. These people are nothing but traitors to our way of life. They are. They may not think they are, but they are. You cannot sit back in the United States of America today, this day. You cannot sit back today and not realize our country's in grave peril. You just can't.
Yeah.
Jason, I'm going to have to leave early. They're calling me right now to get me to come over, so I've got to get some x-rays on my chest.
No problem, Larry.
Hold on one second. Let me just call him a minute.
Well, we can wrap it up. That's fine. I know you've got to go, and we'll carry on next week. But thank you so much for joining me, Larry, and best of luck with the tests over there. Are you still with us? Okay, we'll wait for Larry to come back. He's just making a call there. It's always interesting to speak to Larry. He's got a lot of insights, and his experience, of course, with the Clintons can tell us a lot about their patterns and practices, their modus operandi. I think he's got a great way of stating things, and I always enjoy speaking with Larry. I hope that people will help him out. Larry, you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you. Forgive me.
No problem. No problem. I don't want to hold you up. I know you've got some tests to do over at the hospital. Okay. So we've got just a few minutes more.
Well,
Yep.
Yeah. You know, Jason, would you explain? Well, let me tell one part.
Sure.
The program that Jason has gone to, I don't know what you call it, Patreon or wherever you call it.
Right.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, patreon.com/crowdsourceTheTruth.
All right. Folks, there's two ways you could go about this. Jason could go and get sponsors. And if he does, and he would jump out there and get him a big one pretty quick. Probably somebody selling gold. They'd get him a big one. And then a month or so passes. And that company don't like what he says about this, that, or the other.
Exactly.
And they make the dreaded phone call. You know, we need you to quit talking about that.
Yeah.
That's not good for us.
Yeah.
And then it puts Jason in the spot where he's to continue the program at all, since he's committed to this financial company or whatever, he's got to go with it.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is what he's doing, which is taking a very small amount from a lot of people. Very small amount from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that way his program is independent of pressure. Independent.
You've hit it on the head.
You can get.
Yeah, you've hit it on the head, Larry. I'm trying to make a new mechanism of creating and delivering the news. Obviously, I use the sponsorship funds from people who sponsor the program on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth to go to Sweden. And as you said, you know, there are people who have sponsored the program who maybe don't like what I talk about and threaten to pull their sponsorship. I just tell them to go ahead and do that, because whether someone is sponsoring for $1 or $5 or $100 or $100,000, the idea is, as you've just said, many, many micro sponsors, so that one sponsor pulling out their funds doesn't impact the overall organization to the extent, because it's inherent, as you've just pointed out. If someone is paying a lot of money and says, hey, you know, you should talk about this, you shouldn't talk about that, it's just, they have too much financial control over the future of the companies. So I appreciate you standing up for the show and the sponsorship mechanism, and I thank you very much for creating this program with me, Larry, and joining me each week to share your insights. Even if what we're sharing is just opinion, if people dislike those opinions, they don't have to watch, and if they want to hear them, we're here.
Yeah, and you know, Jason, they don't have to. When I come on Tuesday, look at it this way, Jason's good enough to tell y'all that I'm coming on Tuesday, so if you hate me, don't listen on Tuesday.
Exactly.
It's not that hard. And he gives enough diverse programming. And that's what it takes, diverse programming. This is a complex system. This is not just, anyway, it's a complex system that they're using to take the country over. But folks, we are in trouble deep. We don't have time to play around anymore. And if you doubt me, if you doubt Jason, then look at Kavanaugh. What more have you got to see than what's being done to that Kavanaugh guy?
Yeah. No, you're right.
What more have you got to see?
You're absolutely right, Larry. Well, listen, I want to thank you, Larry, for joining me today. I want to thank everyone for watching. I'm going to be back later tonight at 8 p.m. with more pain. We're going to be discussing Michael Moore's new book about how they dismantled the FBI in their pajamas. The book is coming out very soon, and of course True Pundit and Michael Moore's reporting has been incredibly accurate, months ahead of the mainstream press. So I hope that people will join us later tonight on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I want to thank my friend Larry Nichols for joining me today, and I want to remind people to go visit nicholslive.com. You can read Larry's blog posts, you can participate in the conference calls, and you can financially sponsor Larry if you're so inclined. Larry, I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a pleasant day. Anything else you'd like to leave us with?
No, just this. Folks, it's moving fast now. Moving fast.
Yeah.
And the faster it gets going, the closer we are to the end. And that's not good. Help us, please. Thank you, Jason.
Have a good day, Larry. Good speaking with you as always. And thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you later tonight.